Thanks to Vivid Strike getting its own video, that last fucking finish or fail ended with nothing that I actually finished being in the video. It's a sad state of affairs. I hope it's not like that again. Number 5, we've got Cheating Craft. Oh man, I've actually seen the first episode of this, and it was right on the fringe of acceptable and cringe, to borrow a line from one of my songs. So let's see. Let's see. I don't know if this is gonna hold up, but we'll see what happens. Cheating Craft feels to me like if one of the fake manga from Bakuman was actually real. Like one of the ones that the artists in the story created, which is both a good and a bad thing. Because on the one hand, the premise is so over the top and absurd and hilarious that it makes me want to watch and enjoy the show. It's about a world where education completely determines your place in society. There's these super ridiculous schools that are like the school that the main characters go to is like on a floating island with fucking waterfalls and shit. And if they do well in school, then they'll have set lives forever, and like everything in society revolves around how well you do in school. And so, in order to succeed, you have to either be a genius or you have to be great at cheating. And most people, it's a high stakes game because if you cheat, you get expelled. So everyone's trying to cheat using these crazy, hilarious, gimmicky methods. And the first episode was pretty hype in that it's introducing this ridiculous premise, but it's also at the same time like clearly dumb, and there's obviously like not a lot to the main characters or the story. It's mostly about this dumb premise. And the production values are not very good. Pretty sure this is another one of the current wave of Chinese anime that have been coming out. And I mean, it's one of the better ones that's come out because a lot of them look really awful. This one looks okay, but it has weird production elements, particularly the sound design. Everything sounds like off. Like the music's always very low in the background, even when there's no dialogue or no sound effects. So it's kind of like awkward in between things happening, and also just the way that the fighting plays out, the cheating, if you will, in this episode. At first, it's really creative and fun. Everyone's using all these weird techniques to try to cheat, and I was like, this is funny. But then it kind of like it devolves into like a weird metaphorical shonen battle arena. Like, as opposed to them in the classroom doing all these things, we suddenly have the characters in like a ruined landscape, like a generic shonen fighting ruins place that they always like wasteland that they always fight in, and all the kids are there like kind of just fighting each other with these techniques as opposed to being in the classroom, which I'm sure is because it would be difficult to animate all this fighting while having to draw all the background students and keep the entire classroom in mind. So it's a lot easier to do spatial stuff if you just have this metaphorical landscape, but it's not exciting then. It doesn't feel like they're cheating on a test. It just feels like some completely unrelated shonen battle arena. Sometimes it was hard to even imagine how the things they were doing could have been happening in the classroom. And then at first they're all doing all the cheating while the teacher's like asleep. But then the teacher wakes up, and then they're just kind of like fighting the teacher like he's a boss or something. And I was like, aren't they supposed to not get caught cheating? Isn't that the whole point? Is that if you get caught, you get kicked out? No, they just like defeat the teacher and then get away with the cheating, like doing it blatantly in front of his face. So yeah, I thought it's a little too dumb. Like, I like this, how over the top and ridiculous the premise is, but it's at the point where there's not really enough concrete rules keeping it together, and there's just too much going on, and there's not enough like actual intrigue of plot and characters to make it a show I'd want to watch all of. It's fun to know it exists, but it's not really worth watching, I'd say. Okay. Generate number 8. That's Magic Kyun Renaissance. Don't know anything about that, so let's give it a go. it just seems to be like a typical reverse harem show with these fucking ridiculous outfits. I think those are the school uniform. Whatever. I'm not even gonna fucking bother watching a whole episode of that. What next? Give me something. 12. Nyanbo. I've seen screen caps from this one, and I'm very curious about it. Just look at this. Just appreciate what this is. It's a show about CG box cats running through real life world pictures. It's fucking neat. Also, I guess this is somehow connected to Yotsuba? Did Yotsuba create the Nyanbo? I don't know enough Yotsuba lore. Nyanbo is actually still airing, but I watched all the 12 episodes that came out last year, and it's good. It's good, fun, wholesome time for the whole family. Everybody should watch it and have a good time. It's a show about CG box cats living in the real world. I think what carries it really is that it's the background footage, all of the real world footage is really well shot. It's all this gorgeous cinematography, and plenty of like footage of real cats and real things in our world interacting with these cute little CG guys who are pretty good looking too, and decently animated, and yeah, the show just looks and feels really good. I mean, it's a kids show essentially. It's something that anyone could watch and appreciate, but it's really creative and fun. It's sort of similar in concept to something like Bananya, but infinitely more creative and with way more effort put into it. So if you like those kind of 5-minute cute little fun shows, this is one of the better ones that's out there. We're on the last 10 of the short shows. I can't believe it. What's coming up? 4, Gyarlish Number. Alright, I've been looking forward to trying this one because it sounds interesting. So, let's see how it goes. Alright, we're close. We got, number 5, Brave Witches. Yeah, a Strike Witches sequel, I think. I like Strike Witches. Let's check it out. Alright, so I just watched the first 3 episodes of Brave Witches, and I'm just going to put it on hold for now. I'll probably watch the rest eventually because I want to do a video on this whole franchise and this whole type of show. But, to share my thoughts on this one so far, it's weird because it's a new... basically, they just took, like, the idea of Strike Witches, which is that it's a show about World War II pilots and planes reimagined as cute girls fighting monsters from another dimension or something. I don't know why. Strike Witches is a fun show about like this one platoon of or squadron rather of plane girls who fight evil things, and it's just about going between them, you know, doing cool stuff on the battlefield and hanging out at home and having a sort of slice of life adventures, and it's a good time. And so the idea of let's just do that again, but with a different squadron instead of the same one that we've had 2 seasons of, seems like a perfectly sensible idea. Like, yeah, just focus on a different set of characters and you can have a different story. The weird thing, though, is that they're basically just retelling the same fucking story. Like, the parallels between this and Season 1 of Strike Witches are so strong that it feels totally pointless to do this again. Like, granted, the characters have different personalities and different goals, but so far the pacing of the show, the, like, what happens in each episode, like, what role each character fulfills, is exactly the fucking same. You've got a high school girl from Japan, brown hair, and dog features, who has, like, a member of her family who's in the military, which is how she ends up a part of it. And she's in the first episode, she has encounters with like a higher ranking officer who puts her on the ship, and in episode 2 their ship gets attacked while they're on the way to Europe, and they fight off a bunch of bad guys. There's one of the members of the team that she ends up joining doesn't really like her, and they kind of butt heads in episode 3. It's the exact same things that happened in season 1, just with different characters and slightly different reasons for it. And so it feels really baffling that they would just do the exact, like, they had the opportunity to do anything. You could just make the next show be like in the same universe with the same, the same general feel, but have it be a totally different kind of show. And instead they made the same show, but with different attributes. And it's not like it's super modernized or anything. Like, this new season is by Silverlink, which I don't think they've done any of the previous ones. The original show was by Gonzo. The staff that made it, when Gonzo fucking went kaput like a year later, they all migrated to a different studio and made season 2. And I believe the movie, I think that's all the other anime Strike Witches parts. But then you've got this one, and it's very clearly trying to capture the same look and feel as Strike Witches. You wouldn't even like question the idea that this came from the same people if you were told, but like it's slightly worse, and that's a kind of a huge insult because Strike Witches came out in 2008 and was like, I wouldn't say it was cutting edge for the time, but it looked like one of the, it was up to the standard of 2008 anime. And the sequel was out in 2010, was up to the standard of that year, and was slightly better. This show kind of looks the same, except that it has even more of the like cost-saving CG moments, and like aside from the aesthetic being basically the same, the visual direction's not as strong. Like, what makes the original show entertaining, especially season 2, is that it presents everything with this very bombastic feel. It's got like really epic music, really great well-directed action scenes where the characters come off as really badass, and there's all these like highly big emotional moments, not like emotional as in like make you cry or anything, but just like the way that the scenes are presented has a grandiosity to it. And in this show, even though the music is still very grand, the actual scenes are just kind of flat. Like, the way that it's directed visually, everything just kind of feels the same. There's no pop, there's no moments of like really feelsy, stuff going on, in spite of fairly strong voice acting and everything. And it's fun to see like a different cast, like the same kind of show, but with new voice actresses and new characters. But at the same time, it's like, man, this is just Strike Witches 1 again. Why are we just retreading this material from nearly 10 years ago? Especially when season 2 was even better than season 1 and really carried it into like an even further, like season 2 was not just a retread of season 1. It was in that season, like each character had their own episode where they got to do something super badass. This feels like we're just being introduced to all the characters as we were back in season 1 of Strike Witches. So yeah, it's a strange retread, and it's not that exciting or interesting. It kind of just makes me feel like I could be watching the original Strike Witches as opposed to this. So yeah, I don't know. It's not terrible, but I feel very little drive to continue it. Alright, we got 8 short shows left and 9 long shows to try after that. I'm going to say, I obviously forgot to mention this when I rolled for Brave Witches, that I put Girlish Number in its own video, which you're probably already aware of. But, like, I don't know what the odds are of any of these being the new number 1. Like Girlish Number is my number 1 show of the year, and the only things that I'm looking at here that like I expect to have any chance is like Lupin the Third Part 4, which I only saw the first episode of, but I really liked it. And I hear lots of great stuff about Flip Flappers, and some people think I'll really like Sangatsu no Lion, but like out of all these, I can't imagine if any of them will be better than Girlish Number, but there's only one way to find out, and that's by watching all of them. Number 6, Ao Oni the Animation. Don't know what that is, but we'll give it a shot. Well, admittedly, when I saw a 3-minute episode type show with just like basic ass flash animation that looked really dumb, I had low expectations, but they were exceeded. I watched 2 episodes of Ao Oni, because the first episode surprised me when it suddenly turned into like violent shock humor that was kind of funny. And then episode 2 was pretty absurd. I think the show it's not necessarily my style of humor, but I was so not prepared for what it was that it was pretty entertaining for at least those 2 episodes. But it deserves to exist, I guess. Number 2, that's Flip Flappers. It's about damn time. Let's check out the show everyone wanted me to watch from the beginning. Okay, well, I'm sure some people might be disappointed to hear this, but I watched the first 4 episodes of Flip Flappers, and I kind of don't get it. It's fun, I guess. Not that into it. I don't want to drop it outright. I feel like I'd actually enjoy this show if I was, like, wasted. Like, if I was super fucking drunk and just wanted to, like, have a uniquely visual experience and not think about it too hard, then I might enjoy this show. Though I don't know, because I feel like a lot of people, the way they talk about this show is as though it has a lot of depth or, like, a deeper subtext to it. So maybe I'm just not picking up on it and don't understand. But to me, it just feels like, I don't know, it just feels like a bunch of cool visuals and nothing else to go on. I don't find Paprika or Coconut to be interesting characters, and the show is pretty much just them. There's really not much else going on. I mean, you've got the rival girl who's showing up. Is this like a zit on my forehead? It's driving me crazy. It itches. Anyways, the show is, it's really nice to look at. You know, it's got great art design, unbelievably good animation. It's very experimental. You see new and different things in each episode. But, I don't know. None of it's, like, super enticing to me. None of it feels like, wow, I need to see more of this so I can see more of that amazing art and animation. I don't know. Maybe it's not my style. Maybe it's not my speed. I know the guy who directed this was one of the episode directors for Space Dandy, and the show definitely reminds me of Space Dandy in that it's willing to go like really out there with its weird experimental, episodes and shit, and has different episode directors for each episode in the way that a Shinichiro Watanabe show would. And the guy who directed this is the one who did episode 5 of season 2, which is the fishing episode, which is one of the ones I don't like very much. I know a lot of people really love that one, but there's certain episodes of Space Dandy that are just too much for me, that they're so out there that I really just don't get it. And that's exactly how Flip Flappers feels to me. Like, sometimes I'm watching it with like just kind of a vacant feeling of, what is even fucking happening right now? Like, this just looks like a bunch of visual noise to me, because I'm not sure what the meaning is behind what I'm seeing. Like, sometimes I can't tell even which stuff is actually supposed to be happening. I assume all of it, but it's weird how, like, Coconut doesn't even really react to any of the weird shit that happens to her. Which leads me to wonder, like, am I in some kind of acid fever dream sometimes? Like, I just don't get what they're going for. Like, the characters, what are they doing? Like, the show just seems to be about them bonding together, but neither one of them individually is all that interesting. And, like, Paprika, I said this on Twitter, but she really reminds me of an aged-up Ponyo. She reminds me a lot of the personality of Ponyo. But the thing about Ponyo, and that's, one of my favorite movies, so I'd consider that more or less a compliment. Ponyo's deeply in love with Sosuke and just kind of shouts his name and follows him around and is adorable. But Sosuke, part of what makes them so fun to watch together is that Sosuke is so down for everything that Ponyo does, like that even though she's like this totally weird out there creature, Sosuke just like doesn't even see that part of it and just has like just is like, yeah, obviously we're best friends, we're gonna do all this. Whereas Coconut has that level of doubt towards Paprika that gives them more friction, and it's just not as entertaining of a relationship. And then also what grounds the movie Ponyo is that while Ponyo and Sosuke themselves are just having a whimsical adventure and don't care about anything, for everyone else everything that's happening is serious. It's serious business, where like Ponyo's father is trying to, you know, rebuild the world because of humanity's pollution and stuff like that. And you know, for Sosuke's mom, like her father or his father's out at sea, and you know, she's worried about him and stuff like that. There's a lot of like adult human drama going on around the main characters while they're having their fun little escapades. And in this show, I feel like so much of it is just it's just like, here's a bunch of whimsical stuff. It's just super duper like, hey, I hope you like going on a fun wacky adventure. But I don't know. Maybe I don't care to go on a fun wacky adventure enough to find it that entertaining. I mean, episode 3 had some pretty cool stuff in it. Like, it had some awesome action scenes and stuff like that, and that was a little bit more exciting. I'm always down to watch some cool fight scenes and stuff. There's lots of like visual references to different things. The first episode gave me a very strong Ghibli vibe, like in the way that that like there was lots of moments that looked like something from a Miyazaki film. And then I found out afterwards that the director of this show, who also, you know, was the episode director for episode 1, has animated for several Ghibli films. So I think maybe that's a direct influence. Didn't feel that way about the other episodes from, you know, other episode directors. That just that first one had a very strong Ghibli vibe, which also fits in with this whole Ponyo thing. But and then episode 3 is obviously like a lot of reference to Mad Max, including visually, like just in the way that certain shots are. But yeah, I don't know. It's not the same as Space Dandy, where with Space Dandy there was a strong grounding to it, where you had the character Space Dandy who had a very clear personality, and every character was very distinct, and like even if they didn't have the most like interesting goals as characters, at least you understood them. And the whole show had this strong feeling of like this retro futuristic throwback tone to it. You know, even though it was doing all these crazy weird experimental things, it was all grounded in that 80s kitsch atmosphere. And Flip Flappers to me doesn't have a personality like that. There is no grounding, like this is what the tone of the show is, or this is what like you know, what personality there is. It's just two girls going on weird fucking adventures. And I just don't know what I'm supposed to care about that. You know, I don't know why I should give a fuck about these adventures, other than that they look kind of cool. And they don't look that cool. You know, there's other shows that just have more... Maybe it's just not my aesthetic. I don't know. But, I mean, there's certain things that look great. I love the room that Paprika and Kokona have, like, that Paprika makes out in the woods. She, like, turns this big... pipe into like a room, and they live in that, and that looks awesome. But otherwise, I don't know. I'm not that interested. I just don't. I don't feel that magic that I feel like I'm supposed to feel. I feel like everyone else who really likes this show is just like, yeah, cool. This looks fun and poppy, and I'm like, whatever. I'm gonna pass out, you know. But again, I would like to finish it eventually, just because it is so out there. You know, like I relish in getting to have completely new experiences with anime and to see some shit that I've never seen before, even if I don't get it or don't understand it. So I would like to watch the rest of the show. I just feel like the best mindset for me to do it in would be obliterated drunk, when I'm not thinking about it or like getting impatient, because the whole time I was watching this I was just like, when am I gonna care about these guys? When am I gonna want to know what's gonna happen to these characters? So you know, I'll watch it next time I'm smashed, I guess. All right, well, the prospects of topping Girlish Number for my favorite of the year are looking slimmer than ever, but we'll see what happens, man. www.working. Well, hopefully I'll hate this less than I hate the rest of the working anime. Oh my god, I lasted 5 minutes. It was a waking fucking nightmare. Let me tell you about working, alright? I guess working must be pretty fucking successful, because they made 3 whole seasons and this now spin-off anime. But I hate it. And, I watched the whole first 2 seasons of Working only because my little brother Shade liked the show, and I thought it was just like, to me it was like that perfect bordering between 5 and 6 level of like just barely watchable enough to keep watching, but not good. But because Shade wanted to watch it, we ended up watching 2 whole seasons together. And the thing is that I liked the characters and concept of working. I just hated the anime, and I ended up reading the manga like pretty extensively. I was following the translations for a while, and the manga's great. Like it's just a funny little 4 coma. It eventually got tiring. Like I think I made it probably 35 chapters in or whatever, and then it got to the point where the jokes just got repetitive, which happened a lot faster in the anime. But the problem with the anime is that it just had really bad comedic timing. Like, the way that the 4 coma gags work in comics, they just didn't translate to animation. And for some reason, there would always be like an extra beat in there. Like, you know, there's supposed to be like the setup, the like 3 panels of setup and then a punchline. It's basically how a 4 coma comic works. But with the anime, there'd always be like a 5th panel in there, which is where they try to do like some kind of Sakuga thing that's just totally pointless and kills the timing of the joke, you know? And there was just a lot of that. The show always felt off to me. Like, it always felt like the jokes never land. They're always just off-timed and stuff. And it bothered the hell out of me. But at the very least, that show had, like, effort put into it. This one is not only is the comedic timing just non-existent, this feels like a flat void of nothing. Like the whole opening part was just like this weirdly timed, badly paced segment that was not funny or interesting or involving, and then there's the jokes aren't good, but also it just looks terrible. Like the artwork looks really bad, the characters look really bad. One of the biggest strengths of working was it has really cute character designs. This show has hideous character designs. Don't know how that happened. I don't know if it's a different designer or what. Pretty sure it's still A1 Pictures making it. But at least they had tried on the previous shows. The animation is like non-existent. There's one shot. There's like a crowd shot kind of thing, like from a distance. And there's like one girl who's like you know, it's just a bunch of people standing still as opposed to walking. But there's one girl who's in a walking pose, like she looks like she's running, but she's just a static image. And it's real distracting. All of it's really bad. Really, everything about it is absolutely awful. And I just wanted to die watching that for 5 minutes. So, no more of that, please. Alright, I think Sangatsu no Lion is the only one of these short shows left that's not a literal short show. Maybe not Timebokan, but I think these ones are all shorter episodes. To Be Heroes like 12-minute long. Anyway, we might be able to knock these all out in this video, possibly. We get 2. We already got 2. I should have changed the numbers again. 8. Timebokan 24. Alright, I'll check it out. I think it's a kid's show. You know, it's not even that I think there's anything wrong with Timebokan 24. It's just that, like, watching it felt like white noise to me. Like, it's just... I was just under the impression, like, yeah, this is what a kid's show is, you know? That's what I'm experiencing here, so... Yeah, I just didn't feel the need to finish the first episode, honestly. But alright, let's see what we get now. We get number 1, Sangatsu no Lion. Alright, we're gonna round off all the serious shows in this episode. Alright, I just watched all the episodes of Sangatsu no Lion that aired in 2016, which is to say the first 11 episodes. I saw some people on Twitter when I was talking about the fact that I was watching the show were confused about why I was watching it when it's not over yet. Well, the point of this Finish or Fail series is that I'm trying to put together my top 20 anime of 2016 list by watching all the 2016 anime. And if you missed out on my top 20 of 2014 list, the way that I do a yearly top list is to account for only episodes that aired that year. So if it's a show that started in 2015, then it's about how good is the second half. If it's a show that started in 2016, it's how good is the first half. So I watched the first half of Sangatsu no Lion, and I'll watch the rest when it's over, I guess. But yeah, it was absolutely delightful. It was amazing. It's probably a very close second place for my favorite of the year so far. It's practically tied with Girlish Number. And there's a good chance that by the time it's over, I will like this show more. But as a 2016 show, it's just right behind it. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's still going, that Girlish Number has a conclusion and, works through its whole arc, whereas this show is sort of in the middle at this point. But, man, this show makes me... I was not ready for the feels. I was not ready to feel the feels that I feel watching this show. I watched most of this show with tears glistening in my eyes. I cannot make my hair look good right now. I felt strong, intense feels all the way from pretty much episode 3. I didn't know what I was in for, but yeah. This is a very sad show, but also very relaxing, very comfy. It's one of those shows that I had to sort of, like, over the course of the first episode, I had to, like, lock into its pace. I had to get myself into that groove. And then the second I was there, it was just, like, coasting. I was just one with the show for the rest of it. And this show, I think, is phenomenally paced and directed, and the visuals and sound design are outstanding in this show. First of all, probably my favorite soundtrack of the year. Sometimes I was tearing up just because of the music alone. Like, not even what was happening, just the music is so fucking good and so emotional. And, as is the sound design, voice acting, this shows once again proof of how much I love Kana Hanazawa. She has a great role in this show. I love all the characters. I love everything that's going on with them. And I wish that I had not done my anime tone shifts video before watching this show, because this show is practically like a guide to exactly what I was talking about. Like, a lot of what's good about this show is exactly what I was saying in that video. And if I were to, like, do an analysis of the show, it would probably be to restate a lot of those points, which is that it presents a lot of different emotions, a lot of different emotional tones, and it goes all in on each one. Like, what's so great about it is that it can switch between funny scenes and dramatic scenes, but each one is completely felt and understood and hits you deeply. And the reason that they happen back to back is for the exact reason I talked about, that life does not wait around for your emotions. And so much of the point, really, is that the main character is so in his own head. Like, when he's left to his own devices, he just, ruminates on things and gets darker and darker with his thoughts, but other people don't allow him to always be that way. When he encounters the 3 sisters that he ends up spending a lot of time with, then they're not on that wavelength with him. They forcefully drag him out into their antics, their fun, wild, poppy antics. And, and there's a whole episode that's basically dedicated to exactly this feeling, which is where, he has to have a match against this old man who is supposedly going to retire if he loses this match. Because the main character Ray, he has this evil sister named Kyoko, who tries to psych him out to make him lose matches by telling him how badly the other person he's going to fight is going to be affected if they lose. So he thinks that this old man is going to give up if he loses, and he's so worried about it. He's ruminating on, like, oh man, am I going to ruin this guy's life? Like, what does it mean to have been played shogi for 40 years? What could that possibly mean? And then he meets the old man, and the old man turns out to be this goofy weirdo who's, like, just kind of an idiot. He's just been stumbling through shogi for 40 years and through life. He's a moody, kind of a well-meaning asshole, idiot. And so, Ray's perceptions of what's going on are kind of flipped on their head, because he has to, like, compare what he's been building up to what the actual reality of the situation is. And, yeah, I find that really interesting and cool, the way the show handles that. And it represents all of these different emotional moods so perfectly in animation. Like, and it uses lots of experimental techniques. I think this show is Like to compare with Flip Flappers, which was also a show that was like very visually distinctive. I think this show is way more interesting visually because it's doing all these experimental things. Like it's using all these weird techniques and stuff I've never seen before, but all of them have a very clear emotion behind them. Like all of them are used to represent something that I immediately understand, and that makes it resonate. It's like, you know, when they use certain weird color choices or you know, just like kind of break into other art styles, it's always for a reason. It's always to communicate this specific feeling, and it makes that feeling way stronger than it would be if they didn't do that. So I think it's phenomenal at doing that. Like, and on a moment to moment basis, like every little fleeting emotion has consideration into how to animate it. I would say this show is almost as visually strong as like Kill La Kill in that regard, where like no moment is wasted to make something unique out of it. You know, they never stop thinking about how can we represent this scene in the most interesting way, or the way that will communicate the emotions most strongly. So even though a lot of the show is, you know, not exactly super deep or complex, it can communicate emotion so immediately that it's like it just really reaches in. It grabs me by the heart. You know, just the simple experience of watching it is an emotional roller coaster ride, and that's what gets to me so much about it. And again, the sound design really contributes a lot to that as well. And then just the themes of fucking loss and sadness over losing relatives, that kind of stuff really gets to me because I have a very close family, and my greatest fear is losing anyone close to me because it will ruin me forever. Like the day that someone close to me dies, I am going to be fucking wrecked for like the rest of my life probably. So, you know, seeing that in this show, seeing the way that these characters react to it, to those losses, I'm just like, I don't ever want to feel this way. I don't ever want these feels, you know? Like every time the subject of the kid's parents comes up, I'm just ready to cry because I'm like, I can't deal with these emotions. Um, but even more than that, what I connect to the most in this show is the main character's general way of thinking, because the way he thinks is so much like the way I think that it's yeah, it's I mean, I don't think I'm quite as negative as him, but the reason I'm so distant from other people, the reason I have such a hard time like talking to people and enjoying the company of others and everything, is because I tend to analyze every situation I'm in and then sort of draw the most depressing conclusion out of it. Like when I see someone doing something, even let's say I see someone doing something fun, I can't help but think of it as them like trying to make up for the pain that they're feeling at the time. You know what I mean? Like that's a kind of overstated example, but just, you know, I'm always worried about like that everyone's clinging on. You know, like I can't ever just take things at face value. It's always like, well, what does this say about this person? You know, what is this like? I know we're all suffering, so like whatever we're doing must be in response to that suffering. How are we trying to just get over our constant suffering? And that's how I kind of view every scenario. And it's so hard for me to enjoy just like hanging around with people because all I'm thinking about is like the pathetic underbelly of what we're all like, why we're all here, you know. And he also has that mindset of like that like there's that just living in the world in a way makes you complicit in the system of causing pain to everyone. Like you you're just trying to live. You're just trying to fucking be yourself and be happy. But to do that, you have to constantly take away from other people. You know, like there's no way to live without doing any damage to anyone. Without, you know, you can't for instance play a shogi match against somebody in a professional setting without you know, it's going to damage their career if they lose. It's going to damage their personal and professional reputation, you know. There's just you can't go through life getting what you want without taking it from somebody else in some way, you know? And we all just try not to think of it that way. We try our hardest to think of it as like, well, I'm taking from, yeah, sure, I'm taking from someone, but I'm benefiting myself and I'm benefiting other people. I know that me, like, winning is not just for me. It's also for a lot of other people, but inevitably it means someone is losing. You can't have victory without someone having defeat. And the more you think about that, the harder it is to enjoy the victories. The harder it is to, like, to be complicit in the system of being alive. And that's something that really affects this Ray character, and it really affects me when I let myself think about it too much, which I try not to. So yeah, I really connect with him and his whole mindset and everything. And yeah, I really love the show. Look forward to getting to watch the rest whenever it's done. I wish it was already done. I wish I could just watch the rest. And I'm glad that I ended up loving this show so much. It's definitely one of the best Shaft shows I've seen in a long time, and I'm a huge fan of the studio, obviously. I was gonna have to watch this whole show either way for my Shaft project eventually. So I'm really glad to have loved it. And also, I was a really big fan of Honey and Clover back in the day. I haven't watched that show in like almost 10 years, but it was one of my favorites for a considerable amount of time, and this is from the same author, so it's nice to get a lot of those same feels back. Like, part of what fascinated me about Honey and Clover back when I watched it was how it took place over such a huge amount of time and just sort of focused on these seemingly random vignettes of emotions that the characters were feeling and, like, different little scenarios that they were going through. And I remember that at the time, there were certain things I connected with super strongly, and other stuff that I felt like I wasn't old enough to understand almost, because the characters were a little older than me. I was in high school. So I'd be curious to watch that show again and see how I connect to it now. I remember not as much favoring that it gets quite as so depressing and dramatic as it goes along. But, maybe I could deal with it. Maybe it'll be even harder to deal with. This show can have some depressing moments, but overall feels more uplifting thus far. Anyways, I don't know how much through the muck we might have to get dragged in the later half of the show, but I'll look forward to it either way. And yeah, well, let's finish off these short shows. How about that? Alrighty, we're down to the last three, and they're all shorts, I think. Number 4, Nobunaga no Shinobi. I've heard good things about this show, so I look forward to it. Alright, well, I watched like 4 episodes of Nobunaga no Shinobi, and it was really adorable. I have nothing else to say about it. Watch it if you want to see something really adorable, I guess. So that has to do with samurai and shinobis. Alright, we'll do To Be Hero next. I saw the first episode of this, actually, when it first came out, and it was very strange. It's another one of those Chinese ones, but it's a different kind of animal from most of the others. So, To Be Hero. I know this show has gotten some attention in the Sakuga community because it's got lots of really weird and interesting animation in it. That's pretty cool. And it's like the first one of the, like, Chinese anime that has, like, all-out Sakuga stuff in it. And that's kind of neat, and the show is pretty funny at times. It's just outright toilet humor. Very literally, the main character is a toilet seat, like, creator. The show has funny moments, but it's also just completely fucking stupid. It is the dumbest shit that I've seen in a long time. And I don't think I could watch a whole show of it. I just watched episode 2, and I was just like, this is one of the rare cases of a show I think I actually would have been better off watching week to week. I probably would have, like, each episode would have been just baffling enough to make me want to watch the next one, but, like, the idea of marathoning it in a row is just like, I can't take too much of this all in one sitting. Even if I did watch it week to week, it's not like that would ultimately lead, end up being a show I loved. It'd just be something I watched out of sheer curiosity, but yeah, I can't see myself finishing this one. Well, all that leaves us with is Kitaro Shonen no Yokai en Nikki, which I know nothing about. I assume is another short show. I don't even know, but let's get it over with quick. Well, I watched 2 episodes of that, and it was a goofy little time with some yokais, real cute girls, whatever. We did it! That's all the short shows of 2016. Now, next time, we'll move on to the long shows of 2016. So look forward to that. Still probably a few more videos of this. But eventually we'll be done. Hopefully, within the next week, we'll be done. We're not going to be done in the next week.